Hello, everyone. My name's Cash Miller, and welcome to Emerging Brands Franchises on the Rise. I'm also the CEO of Titan Media Works. We do podcast production, and we've got a great episode today. This is an amazing opportunity because our population is getting just older and older. We got a lot of boomers that need help nowadays. People get old, and when they get old, they need help. And I've got with me Home Helpers Home Care. Yes, that's a little bit of a mouthful, but I've got Bobby Kelley. He is with Home Helpers. And Bobby, it's great to have you on. Tell us a bit about what you guys do. And you've been with the franchise for a long time. So you're going to know everybody the ins and outs, not just of this franchise, but this industry, and what it's facing right now is huge, and it's a huge business opportunity. So give us the rundown.
No, thanks, Cash, for having me. And I'll tell you, you nailed it. I mean, you nailed it. I think whenever you talk about home helpers, you talk about actually the senior market. And the reason I share that is because, we're in a position, the industry itself is that it's very, very relevant right now. I think, people have talked about home care for quite some time and the growth, and every day somebody's going to turn 65 years old. But I think the statistic that's often, overviewed is that, the front end, the baby boomer generation is 77 years old. So the demand for services now is more plentiful than probably ever. The industry itself will continue to feed any entrepreneur, meaning that whatever Cash does, whatever Bobby does, whatever Home Helpers does, or anybody else in the industry, we're all going to go to bed tonight and wake up and 10,000 people have turned 65 years old, right? That is something that excites an entrepreneur, somebody looking at opportunity says, wait a minute now, it's going to be really hard to pick a hole through this business model. But what I coach candidates on when exploring home helpers is, hey, are you ready for the demand? Because the demand is now. And when we flip that switch, right, that front end of that baby boom is starting to say, hey, help. So it's a real opportune time. But the industry, right, when you look at it from an investment standpoint, or you're looking at it as an opportunity, is going to present a long-term opportunity. And it's really going to be hard, right, to ever pick a hole in the model, because your inventory or your target market is going to grow by 10,000 daily through 2051. So we're very fortunate to be on the front end of it and to be who we are in the industry.
Well, I think also the market shifted quite a bit. I mean, I remember, my grandmother, she didn't have this, she never went to assisted living. Neither of my grandparents did. And, because it was a different generation, they more stayed at home. And now we've shifted more to a model where I think as society in general, we want to have that assistance. We want them to have, our parents and grandparents, we want them to have a good quality of life. But to do that, we often don't, as the children, because my mother's still around, we don't always have the ability or the time to be able to give them the help that they're going to need. So these kinds of facilities and support services and things are really needed, and more so going to be. It's not just how many people are entering. I think the perception has changed that more people want to use these types of services, right?
And what happens is that we're drawn a little bit apart more than we ever have been, meaning family, right?
Yeah.
And we're in a scenario now that you have somebody who's facilitating the care, right? Some 47 to 53-year-old female of the family. It's time to make this decision, mom, but also has 2 college students and maybe 1 in high school. So time gets spread thin.
Yeah.
And again, what we have always prided ourselves on is to become an extended part of that family, to bridge the gap, allowing daughters to remain daughters, sons to remain sons, right? Aunts to remain aunts, or sisters to remain sisters, instead of caregivers. And again, if we can bridge that gap and extend somebody's quality of life and allow them to keep a sense of independence, I will tell you, it's something that a family will appreciate just as much as that individual you're giving services to. It's a neat business, and I think often there's a lot of attention on the end user, meaning the client. But really, it's a family affair when we work with individuals around the country of providing care. It's those brothers, sisters, daughters, sons who make the phone call. Most people over the age of 65 are probably going to tell you, I don't need anything, right?
Hmm.
I don't need anything. It's the most independent demographic you'll ever find. But I will tell you, once the caregiver's in the home and they see the ease and how things get a little bit simpler, and they're actually going to spend more time with family, and that time is quality and it's enjoyable, they're attracted to the services. So again, we're very fortunate to be where we're at.
Yeah, I also think depending on like every situation is a little bit different, so the level of care needed is going to be a little bit
Yeah.
different too. Because a lot of older people are still going to maintain a good good level of independence. Describe to us, the kind of services that Home Helpers offers, to be able to take, because it's not just a one size fits all, right?
Right.
It's there's variance here. So go through that a little bit.
Yeah, no, we are a non-medical in-home care provider, right? And the non-medical piece it umbrellas really two services: companion care services and then personal care services. So I think the popular misconception, and it tends to come up a lot in conversation, is everyone that I'm going to care for is bedridden in
Mm,
a state to where they're unable to get around, and that's not the case. Believe it or not, a lot of our clientele or the folks that we take care of are active. Life's just not as easy anymore, right?
yeah,
So as a society, we've evolved to where, hey, we'll pay for things. It's funny. My mom laughs at me because groceries are delivered to the house, dry cleaning is delivered to the house. She said, "Do you ever
yeah,
leave and do anything?" That's just what society calls for now, and I think home care is no different. Meaning that if we can provide a service that allows someone to stay independent, to stay active, right? It becomes very appealing. So with us, the services on the companion side are day to day things, Cash, that you and I probably do, but take for
yeah,
granted, right?
hmm,
Get to the store. Let's go get the
yeah,
mail. Take a walk if we want to. Our favorite show comes on at noon, right? Do a little exercise. And then they evolve into personal care services, more hands on, right? Is how you
hmm,
could probably best describe them. Where
yeah,
there's some bathing, toileting, hygiene, anything that outside of the medical or skilled space that
yeah,
we're able to provide. And the family will usually determine, or a care plan's developed to say, hey, what is the need Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday through Sunday, whatever it may be.
yeah.
And again, you're right. It's I think it's a lot of times, again, it's somebody's unable, right, to get out of bed or unable to move, and that's not the case. A lot of them are active. This life's not as easy as it used to be.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's a little bit extra, extra help. Like I say, it could be as simple as, they go to the grocery store for you and stuff. I know for my own mother, like I say, she's, staying active as much as she can, but she'll
Yes.
go on Walmart.com and she'll order a bunch of groceries and she'll ask me to go get it,
Right.
because it's that kind of thing. It's, because for her going to the grocery store and spending 2 hours going aisle to aisle, and she's got arthritis in her back and stuff, she's going to come out and she's going to be in a lot of pain. So
Yeah.
like I say, so that affects that quality of life, and a little bit of help makes it so much better for her because she didn't have to do that thing. She got everything she wanted, but she needed a little bit of help to make that happen. And I think that's super important, that we have those kinds of services. Let's talk. So you guys have been around a little while, and I know you've been there, a number of years, which speaks well to the franchise always. But how much? What's the footprint look like right now, for the number of franchisees out there?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we will celebrate our 27th year in existence coming up. So very fortunate. October 5th, I was able to celebrate my 18th year with the organization. So the reason, again, I bring that back up is I've seen it evolve, right? From where we were to kind of where we're at now.
Hmm.
And we right now have about 300 plus franchisees servicing about 1,000 plus communities around the country. We're in
Wow.
48 states. And recently have invested in some technology that lets us know, hey, we still probably have about 200 optimized opportunities out there,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's important to share simply because what can happen is when somebody starts to do research or looking at opportunities, right? They one of two things: are you big enough? Are you just emerging? Is it
Yeah.
I'm getting in on the ground floor, or did I miss my time? And with
Yeah.
us, because of the industry, because of the guaranteed growth for the next, 20 plus years, I will tell you, there's never been a more opportune time, and there's never been more opportune um, territory options out there, because what we've been able to do is kind of, surface those key drivers. Where do we need to be and why?
Yeah.
Very simple to say you got space to put franchises. Will it work where you put them? And
Yeah.
so we've been able to kind of fine tune some things over the last few years to make sure that anybody we work with, we're going to identify that very early. But there's still so much opportunity out there. But yeah, we've been around a while, and we don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So we're really excited about the future.
Well, I always like to do kind of a construction from the ground up here. So let's
Yeah.
start with what makes the ideal franchisee for you, because everything is, um, not everybody, it's not always a fit, right?
Yeah.
Like the franchisee's got to be comfortable with the franchisor, but vice versa. So what do you look for in what will become a succccessful franchise,
Yeah.
franchisee?
Great question. And I think it's a two-part answer, right? It's a two-part answer. And first and foremost, you owe it to any candidate to check a few boxes before you
Hmm.
start putting them in that wheelhouse of being the greatest next franchisee you'll ever have, right? And a colleague of mine years ago came up with the two T's and the two F's. And we now operate on the development side using this kind of process on the first, second call to really check a few boxes to see if
Okay.
call number 2, 3, 4, 5 makes sense, right? So if you take a four square box and those top two boxes are T's, the bottom two are F's, you have territory, timing, finance, fit,
Hmm.
right? Territory, timing, finance, fit. And what we're trying to do there, Cash, is to really check off the four things that usually will let a franchisor and a candidate know if they should go to call 2, 3, 4, or 5, right?
Okay.
So from a timing standpoint, does it make sense for that candidate to be exploring this business right now,
Right.
right? What else you got going on? Right? Is
Hmm.
this something you want to do part time? Maybe we're not the organization for you. Are you
Right.
adding to a portfolio? Do you see transitioning this over the next 2 years? Well, guess what? Conversation will change quite a bit over 2 years because our industry changes daily. So
Yeah.
we're gauging, right? What does timing look like for everyone?
Okay.
Territory. Where do you want to operate? Right? Does it make sense for our model? Do the analytics, demographics line up? Do we see ourselves having success there based off the past data that we've incorporated over 26 years?
Yeah.
What works and don't work, right? So early on,
Hmm.
we want to identify there's a territory that makes sense for you. It's a territory that makes sense for us. And then we're going to dive into why it makes sense.
Hmm.
Finances. What something cost, it cost, right? And I
That's a good
always,
way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, I think franchisors sometimes dance around and they sell facts. Facts are facts and figures are figures. Put
Hmm.
them in front of a candidate early. They are what they are, right?
Yeah.
And they're checking those boxes. So we always want to talk. Here's the financial obligation, right? Here's our safety net. Here's the initial franchise fee. Here's what scaling looks like, right? And we want to
Hmm.
make sure that financially somebody's in a position to not just pursue this, but to excite in an exciting manner, engage in the process, right?
Yeah.
To celebrate owning a business and be able to execute the game plan and not be worried about where the next dime's come in a week after I make this decision, right? So finances are important, and last and not least, and probably the most important box one can check is fit. Is fit. Does your
Yeah.
culture, does your mission, does the way you do things align with how I want to do things? Are the people I meet, can I wake up and see myself wanting to spend time with them, right? Our
Yeah.
process will surface that. It's going to put the team that's going to work with you in front of you. And I challenge candidates, that hey, we're going to go through a lot of different numbers and we're going to look at FDDs and we're going to dissect
Hmm.
analytics and we're going to do that. Throughout that process, gauge the people you're interacting with,
Yeah.
right? Because spreadsheets could tell you something's fantastic, but the way you got to fill the blanks in that spreadsheet come from the people you're going to work with and managing the business model and the flow of the business. And I will tell you, you got to enjoy that just as much as you do the outcome. So remember, again, territory, timing, finance, fit. That's how we start, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out, does a candidate align? And then you go into cash, right? Are you a good person? Do the
Yeah.
missions align? And probably the most important, right? When we get to, we've checked those boxes and we're getting down to, does this make sense? I often say, and I've told, when asked, anybody who will listen, right? The ultimate candidate is one who understands that we are in the people business. It is a
Mm.
feel good, warm, and fuzzy industry. And it's
Yeah.
going to hit you, it's going to tug on the strings a little bit. It
Mm.
will not be as warm and fuzzy if we can't pay bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right.
right? So you got to run it parallel. Somebody who understands that the end user and the family and the jobs you're providing and the community outreach is something that is going to be front and center every day. And that is exciting. That's rewarding. In doing that every day, you still have a business you got to operate that you
Yeah.
invested in that you expect return on. That's the ultimate candidate. So that's the two parts, right? Make sure these boxes check. Then who are you moving forward, and does it align with who we are, who we are internally?
Yeah, I love that you have a methodology to it. I don't see a lot of franchises like ton of the, you've really got it defined. I don't see that very often, but I also love that there's a practical side to it, because it is a business no matter
Yeah,
what, and you're going to run into people that really could use the care, might not be able to afford it,
yeah,
but it's still a business. So, there are things that you want to do, but you have to have that practical business nature to say, no matter how much I want to, I can't,
yeah,
because it can hurt the business. And then I have all these other people that I am providing services to that potentially I might not be able to if I hurt, if I do something like
right.
that and I do it enough times. So like I say, it's the reality of any business, so be practical about it. So let's start with that first one though. Okay. Territory.
Yeah,
So most franchises, provide some sort of territory support site selection. What do you guys do on that front to determine, what's an ideal place for someone to be located?
yeah. It's a great question, and it's something that's important, especially after 27 years, right?
Yeah.
It's important that we identify internally markets that we know there's a need, a demand, and kind of grabs the key drivers. So we have invested in some technology that we open up when working with candidates to identify, right? Where
Mhm.
are those key drivers? What territories make sense and maybe what doesn't make sense. And again, that is an active part of our process when working through a candidate, right? Facts are facts, figures are figures. Who knows more than us, what should work and what shouldn't work?
Yeah.
And what can tend to happen, Cash, in this world is because of the feel good part of the business, I get probably a call a week or my team does that says, Bobby, I'll tell you right now, I know 8 people who need this in my neighborhood. And I go, well, I don't know if that supports making a decision to make an investment, right?
Right.
There's other ways
Yeah.
maybe to provide care. So we want to look at what is a scalable opportunity for somebody, right? What's happening today? What
Hmm.
does 2 years, 5 years, 7 years look like? That positions them to scale a business that grows in value. So we're going to leverage some technology. We're going to look at key drivers. We're going to look at analytics. We're going to spit out site reports. And then what's pretty awesome about, home helpers and again, just the tenure of the organization is we're able to go back and say, hey, right, this puts us at an even playing field, right? Meaning
Hmm.
that we know from past experience what should work, what shouldn't work. And
Yeah.
again, facts and figures are just what they are. So when you can weigh them into what you're doing currently, it assures anybody you're working with, hey, I'm looking at this for the right reasons. And that scenario puts me in a position to win, not, hey, yes, it's just available. We want to make sure
Yeah.
available is one thing, winning's a different thing. We got to execute a game plan there. So territory is a big piece of our process from a development standpoint because without it, right, um, we don't have a call to. We don't have a call to. So we're going to
Mhm.
identify it very early and build process around it and surface that right away because again, it's the best use of any candidate's time to understand where I'm going to operate. Is it going to work or not?
What kind of franchise investment are we talking when we look at this? And also, because it sounds like a lot of the services are provided on site, to
Mhm.
whoever that client is, whoever they're helping take care of. So, what kind of investment do you have, and where's the money going?
Sure, sure. No, with us, right, we're an in-home care business, which allows our candidates to come in somewhat of a cash flow positive, overhead low approach.
Okay.
Okay. We're not dealing with big brick and mortar. We're not dealing
Mhm.
with the mortgage side of things, or right. We're dealing with. We're going to provide services in the comfort of somebody's home or where they call home at the time.
Mhm.
Um, right. So what that usually allows us to do is to look at this as if, hey, outside of whatever state requirements, some states licensing wise will require you to have a standalone office
Yeah.
and what have you. But outside of that, we're not calling for big time retail space, right? So from an investment standpoint, outside of the franchise fee, it's limited capital. And I'm not saying that it's capital that's in anyone's back pocket right now, but when you look at some of these brick and mortar, big retail,
Yeah.
right, those investments tend to be a little bit heavier than a service oriented, especially home care opportunity. So again, we're going to customize that cash down to the state, what's required from a startup standpoint, right? What does that look like? Then from a scaling standpoint over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, what capital is needed? Again, $48,900 is our franchise fee. And then we
Okay.
always say, have access to another 100 grand, have access to
Mhm.
100 grand in liquid capital. Not that there's necessary line items that are going to be darting checks against, but put yourself in a comfortable state to not only be in compliance, but then also operationally position yourself to where
Mhm.
you can comfortably execute the game plan, and your territory or your area of operation will determine exactly what that looks like. But that's something we identify very early in our process.
Okay. So, it's not too expensive to get started because, yeah, anything brick and mortar, maybe you need an office. You could potentially start out of the home,
Sure.
if you really wanted to. What does staffing look like for this kind of a business, just like initially? And then where do franchisees typically end up? Yeah. Like over the long haul,
Sure.
like what's the possibilities there?
Yeah, it's limited from a office operation right away, right? There's nothing
Hmm.
that our business will call for that an owner can't somewhat self manage
Yeah.
themselves for a period of time. And I think that's just comes with having a mature franchise system, right? The tools,
Yeah.
the resources, what you inherit as a franchisee, and what we have put into place allow you to eliminate maybe some of those office or admin positions
Yeah.
right away, right? They'll manage some of those things for you. What we're going to concentrate very, very early on is caregivers, right? Caregivers.
Hmm.
And we all right now understand the labor scenario that's out there.
Yeah.
So what the franchisor's obligation to a franchisee is to work with them on a daily basis to put the odds in their favor when it comes to hiring. And what I mean by that is identify, just as you would key referral sources that send you business, there's key referral sources out there that will send you employees, right?
Hmm.
Or become a hub for employees. So what does that look like locally? Where are we going to spend our time when it comes to hiring and eliminating risk in that space? Again, 27 years of best practice,
Yeah.
300 folks waking up every day doing what the next candidate's possibly looking to do. So we have, a huge advantage to be able to leverage our system. What has worked, what hasn't worked,
Mm.
who makes the best caregiver, why, retention plans. So again, from an office standpoint, very limited. A lot of times it's the comfort level of the owner, right?
Got it.
I want
Yeah.
somebody doing this, I want somebody doing that, but there's nothing they can't do on their own starting out. And then the caregiving piece, obviously, we're going to go very heavily in and want that to be rolling every day. I tell
Yeah.
people, Cash, there's two things you're going to do in this industry. You're never fully staffed, ever. And anybody tells you you are, they're lying to you, right? Or something's wrong. You're
Yeah.
always going to be hiring and you're always going to be obtaining clients, right?
Mm.
Those are the two parts of the business that need to run parallel at all times, or you're just busy, right?
Yeah. So the owner is really and especially initially handles the admin portion. They're not necessarily a caregiver. You're going to help hire those
Yeah.
first initial ones, and now the owners, along with the franchisor helping is the job is admin, but also go out obviously acquire your first customers. Yeah, you got to have them, otherwise you don't need the caregivers and
Yeah.
such.
And
So.
here's the other thing, Cash, with the admin piece of it, realize a lot of the tools and resources that we have, the operating system, the back
Mhm.
end accounting, right, have been customized for what we do daily.
Yeah.
So they're actually, they're put in place so owners aren't behind a desk all day, right?
Yeah.
Owners need to be owners first and foremost. And owners need to operate their business, be out shaking hands, kissing babies, being part of the community, what
Yeah.
good CEOs do. So a lot of our tools and resources will help manage the back end admin piece of it until we feel comfortable enough to add
Mhm.
those positions. But again, what can often happen in franchising or when somebody's exploring it, you hear a lot of what will I do?
Yeah.
I. And I often will stop candidates and say, well, wait a minute. There's another piece to this puzzle, and it's the franchise, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
franchise. So again, those tools, those resources, that support team, right? They're not going to be able to wake up every day and go to 1,000 markets around the country and get people out of bed, but they are going to be a resource for folks, right? To streamline, getting to a position where you can add staff, or getting to a position to where, right, we're able to make some decisions in a short period of time instead of 4, 5, 6 years down the road. So
Yeah.
there's value to your partner, and I think often, when you go back to your little community and now I own this franchise system, you look around and say, wait a minute, nobody's here.
Yeah.
The best franchises will tell you that the key to success in that relationship is collaboration. So we pride ourselves on that, which makes that road a little bit easier when you're piecing things together as a franchisee.
When you're first getting going, on that collaboration note, what does the marketing for these kinds of businesses look like, for the franchisees so that they can get those first customers, those first people signed up for, that the service, and then over time as you're scaling it, you're signing up more? Because I know the CEO, that franchisees, they're going to be out in the community and stuff, but
Yeah.
that can take time. So what other support on the marketing side is there so they can get that business up and running?
Yeah, great question. And we're at a neat time, right? We're at a neat time to where I often tell candidates social media is free. It's
Yeah.
free. No matter if you like it or not, it's in your face, and people make
Hmm.
decisions, and people buy from it, and people educate themselves on it. So no matter what, we want to have a digital presence right away.
Yeah.
So before we even launch, right, those things will start to come together. And again, websites being built, making sure Google Analytics and search optimization and keywords and things that are relevant to your market are starting to be positioned. Social media packages, right? The
Hmm.
Facebooks, the LinkedIn, the Twitters, the Pinterest, right? Those pages are already developed and customized. So they're a plug and play to where we have that presence day one, right?
Got it.
So that's a little bit more direct consumer. I will tell you
Hmm.
what is key is that we identify referral sources. Not only do we
Okay.
have the technology to, with the click of a button, here are your
Yeah.
referral sources in the area, but also, again, 27 years of best practice. Our
Yeah.
CEO, I think, sums it up best when often asked about our franchise community. She says it's like joining the biggest fraternity or sorority you'll ever join,
Yeah.
right? There's 300 other folks waking up every day trying to do the same thing. And so we can leverage, again, our community to say, hey, what are the best practices here as far as kicking down doors,
Mm.
sort of having a local presence outside of our marketing team, right? Positioning, events, right? Being part of certain groups. All those things are kind of identified early on before we launch. So then they're active when we do launch. And again, it'll evolve to what your market calls for. But it's a very hands-on approach marketing wise, because I think, again, a lot is available now that wasn't 10 years ago, right?
That's for certain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of things you can do, and the franchisor will help you do some of them, and some you got to be hands on and out there doing it. How, like, can you give us an idea of, I guess, some of the top franchises, ones that have been around? Like, what can a franchisee achieve if they put in the work and like I say, everything is there. What's the possibility over whatever length of time?
Well, the scalability, Ben, the business is endless, right? And here's, why I say that, Cash, is not only is our demand overwhelming and growing
Hmm.
daily and all the things we talked about earlier, but also there's more resources than there ever has been for somebody to actually receive the care, right? So when
Yeah.
you look at it from a franchisee standpoint, scaling the business, our FDD document, very proud of. We're going to be able to deliver it with a smile because our franchise system does extremely, extremely well. right? Now, when you break it down per franchisee, then we're going to break it down per territory. We're going to look at
Yeah.
your market. We're going to look at where you're at. We're going to look at past experience and similar demographic and what have you. So again, the opportunity is endless from a financial standpoint. That's all in the FDD, how we got to deliver
Yeah.
it, what we got to talk
Okay.
about. But I will tell you right now, it is right in line with where it should be in the industry, and we're super excited about probably more excited about now. Folks are getting there quicker, stronger, faster in a shorter period of time.
What do you think is the one differentiator versus competition, that you have, that says, hey, because there are other,
Sure.
companies in the space. What's that one thing that you think you have that they don't?
Yeah, there's great companies in the space, Cash, and I'll be the first to say it. The neat thing about being in home care is that the demands, we've talked about it all day, the demand
Mhm.
is so overwhelming that it's going to call for
Yeah.
a lot of great organizations doing a lot of great things, and we're proud to be a part of it. Uh, we pride ourselves on innovation. We pride ourselves on being the most innovative home care company in the country.
Mm.
And the reason I share that is from a candidate standpoint, right? If I'm looking at an investment, looking at change, I'm looking at opportunity, I want to know that I'm not pigeonholed. I want to know that the
Yeah.
organization I'm aligning myself with is going to be aligned with what the industry calls for in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. Example of that is back in 2020, we introduced the world to what was called Home Helpers Cared For, right? And anybody can remember what was happening back in
Yeah.
2020. It was a challenging time for not, a lot of companies, but for pretty much anybody figuring out what was next. And
Mhm.
we had been at the time working on a program that was going to deliver services as a very total holistic approach to home care, right? Meaning that if we were going to go into somebody's house, what are the main services that they would need that they wouldn't have to necessarily bring anybody else in?
Right.
And we dropped that program in 2020, and I think a lot of folks thought we were nuts. Wait a minute, we don't even know if we're keeping our doors open. We don't know what the next step is. You guys are going to introduce a new business model, and the answer was yes. And the reason why is that the need was then, right? It was now.
Mhm.
It's right in front of us. So Cared For was a way for our franchisees to deliver services that concentrated on not only the caregiving piece, meal delivery, telehealth, having
Mm.
an emergency response unit in the home when a caregiver's not there so a client can interact,
Okay.
as well as wellness checks. So when we went out and ran the prototype, we figured with the feedback we got, these are the four services that, if you really think of it from a home care standpoint, check the boxes. And they allow a family to go, you know what? We feel pretty good about what's going on in the house. We're not lacking something due to whatever it
Yeah.
may be. So
Mm.
again, that along with the caregiver journey and a lot of the other, initiatives that we work on daily, we're going to pride ourselves on being the most innovative, right, franchisor. And again, we do that not only because, right, it attracts the right kind of candidate as far as buying
Yeah.
the franchise, but think about it for those who have made the investment and are out operating and executing the mission every day. It allows them to always be aligned with what's going on in the industry to where they can say, hey, right, corporate's leading the charge there. I'm able to
Yeah.
concentrate on what I'm doing.
Mm.
So it's a neat system to be a part of, because you're never going to have to worry about, are we where we should be, or do we know where we're going, or what's next?
Yeah.
We're two steps ahead of it.
Well, innovation in any business is really important, and especially in this type of business,
Yeah.
because things do change, and so being willing to introduce, new services, new approaches, actually, to doing things on a daily basis is really huge. And so I think, you guys have definitely, like you've, touched on that experience. This is why, if you're going to get into this space, you want to partner up with a company that really has a track record, but there's a huge growth opportunity. That's why it's still emerging no matter what, because there's
Yeah.
like you mentioned, we got 10,000 more people that, fit the demographic, and they're coming on every day, so it leaves, there's a massive opportunity that you guys are going to be able to take advantage of. Other companies in the space will, but and it's one that's not like here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got some runway. So I think if you're looking at the home care space, this is definitely a franchise to look at. Bobby, how would people get a hold of you to inquire about being a franchise to get the process rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to homehelpersfranchise.com. That's actually our development website geared towards more towards somebody exploring the business.
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with even going there before contacting me, gazing through, maybe learning a little bit more about the facts and the figures and some of the things that we want to surface early on in our awarding process. You can get a hold of them as soon as you want to start learning a little bit more, as well as homehelpershomecare.com. And then again, my LinkedIn page gets hit quite a bit. So if you just look me up on LinkedIn, feel free to private message me. I always get back to you. And again, um, you know, Cash, I can't tell you, I thank you enough. Appreciate you giving us the platform today. Any day's a good day. We get to talk about home helpers. So I appreciate it.
No problem there. My name's Cash Miller. I'm the host of Emerging Brands Franchises on the Rise. I'm also the CEO of Titan Media Works. We've been talking about home care. It is a massive opportunity. It is not an industry that's shrinking, that's for certain. It's only getting bigger every day. So if you're thinking that this is a space that you want to be in, this is a franchise you need to talk to, because Home Helpers is really doing something. And you have to also consider, that this kind of a franchise, in your own community is something where you are in a way giving back. You're providing a service that is a necessity. Families do rely on it. They want their family members taken care of. They don't always have that ability to do so themselves because of the time consuming nature of it, that it can become. And that's where Home Helpers comes in. That if you want to be a part of that kind of a franchise and build your business around that, then give them a call. This is a really wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Bobby, for being on, and we'll see you on the next episode.